printouts of the agenda or not.
Oh, no, I
Okay,
did.
that's fine.
Oh, wait, Kim probably did. I got mine was,
That's
here,
fine.
here we go.
Usually you do, that's what I have.
Yeah,
Usually I take my notes on.
let me pass these out, pass them down. You're good? Okay.
Caitlin, do you need?
Hernandez, anybody?
I'll take one.
Yeah, cause I think what I have is outdated, right? I have this.
Thank you.
Need one?
Thank you.
We're good.
You good?
Yeah,
Start whenever.
no, I took online, it's fine.
I'd like to open the meeting for the Finance Committee meeting for March 24th, 2025. Start with our roll call.
Patrick Tam. Here. Kurt Wanninger,
Here.
John Dart.
Here.
Have a quorum.
First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the February 24th, 2025 meeting. Do I hear a motion? Motion to approve. Second. Any discussion? Okay, signify by saying aye for approval. Aye. Aye. Opposed? Good. Okay, first item on the agenda, City of Westfield payroll updates. Arla, you wanna give an update how that's going or status?
Sure. Well, Baker Tilly's been working really diligently to ensure that payrolls are accurate, and I think that's really going well. On our end, directly related to 401A matches, we've been kind of going back and forth, but even just today, Kelly and I had a meeting with ADP at 1 o'clock, and they have since generated reports for 401A that I'll be sending along to her. There was an email on the 12th asking some questions about where we were in the process, and then an email that got recalled from Baker Tilly on the 14th, and I wasn't sure why, but I didn't find out about that email because I was gone and then Debbie was gone until today. But we feel like between the review of their report, them having reviewed this new report that we generated today, Kelly's review and mine, we should be able to get it hopefully out by the end of the week. That's the goal, is to get that all updated from everything from the beginning of the year until now. So we're feeling pretty good about that. Do you have any questions about that particular piece at
I
the
think
moment?
probably the first thing is moving forward is payroll. Is it accurate? Last time, I think last payroll still had maybe 4 or 5 issues.
Well, I'm not being kept abreast of what the issues are, so I don't really know.
Kelly, you wanna?
So, just in general on payroll, it's much better now. I mean, we have the payroll portal, and now it's more just people making current changes.
Okay.
I wanna update my 457B, I want to, contribution, I'm gonna change my deposit information. So I think we're slowly moved away from making any prior corrections. People still have questions on their federal taxes, but before I went on vacation, I worked with Baker Tilly and actually with Rob Gaylor. And there was a calculator that ADP sent us, and the federal taxes are being withheld correctly. It's just a matter of how you fill out your W form. And in our meeting with ADP, I actually made a suggestion for ADP to include that calculator in with where the W4 form is. So then when you make those changes on your W4, you can actually see how much is gonna be taken out. So whether they'll be able to automate that or not, I did make that suggestion to them because that is one of the biggest questions we get right now, is the questions regarding the federal income taxes that are being withheld. But other than that, I haven't seen any major errors. Every once in a while, there's some time reporting, still some hierarchy issues with approvals, but I think we're slowly getting that worked out. Pardon me? Yeah, the accruals, that's gonna be hopefully done within the next maybe 2-3 weeks. The big push this week was to get all the payroll history transferred over from the old profile to the new profiles for the public safety. Because we need to get accurate reporting for our quarterly 941 that's coming up. And that's where we will get reimbursed for the Social Security overpayment for both the employee and employer side. And
When you say you're going back in history, is that back to the beginning of the year or was that last year?
just for January, January 2025. We didn't realize, but in order for Jason and Melissa to correct that the history, they actually had to treat it as a payroll run. And so they got that done on Friday. And so once that's done, to what Marla's point, we're also going to be working on the 401A match to get that addressed this week, and then we'll go on to the other accruals, the vacation, sick, all that has not been updated properly.
So how long to make corrections from, I guess, a couple of weeks ago to beginning of the year, make any corrections associated with that? And basically sum it up for the employees that are owed money back or vice versa.
Right, I received some reports prior to leaving, and I took that little vacation last week. But I actually, I've gone through all the accruals. I just need to do a review before I send it to Jason and Melissa. But to your point, kind of where we are from a settlement standpoint,
Or just this year?
or
I'll
just,
ask
yes,
previous
just
years.
this year. I'm hoping within the next 2 weeks, we get that addressed and buttoned up.
As we've been going along though, as we've realized that there were mistakes in the payment
Right.
process, we've been,
making everyone whole.
shortly thereafter, correct?
Yes, that is correct. So where we are as far as the outstanding deduction issues, I believe it was the second pay when ADP went in and they made some mistakes in updating that second profile, and they didn't get everyone's deductions made properly. So there were several public safety employees where they didn't have medical and dental deducted, and they should have. So those are the things that are still outstanding. They were covered under our insurance. But those are the things that we still need to kind of rectify and see where we are. If there were issues from federal tax withholding or HSA deposits or even 457B, we've gotten all those corrected. But it's just the medical.
For this year.
For this year, yes, thank you. But for the medical deduction piece, that is still something that we need to do a reconciliation and see where we are, if we owe people money or if they're still, they technically need to reimburse us. But that was another discussion we were gonna have, depending on the dollar threshold, if we were just gonna waive collecting that.
So will there be a final audit?
Yes,
At some point to say
that would be correct.
the deductions or the payments that we made were
Yes.
correct, or if they owed us the city money, that was
Right.
correct? I mean, obviously, how many paychecks were impacted? 4 or 5 since the beginning of the year?
5,
I would say
That's
five.
why I
yeah,
said-
I'd say 5.
There's obviously
There was
a lot
one
that's
that
happened in
was
that time period, so.
substantial.
Yeah.
But then the others had several things, but I think it was pay 2 that was the worst.
I would have
Of the
voted
first.
3 was the worst.
Yeah, maybe it'd been 3. It was either 2 or 3 was, yes.
3
Yeah.
was,
So
3 was
question
the
on
worst,
that,
yep.
Danielle, for you, when that rectification's done in regards to where every employee stands, is that something you're gonna bring back to the council?
Council, yes. The council will have to review it to determine whether or not absorbing or,
Okay.
yes, you guys will get a full detailed audit report once Baker Tilly is done with the ins and outs.
Yeah.
That's all the questions I've got going from beginning of this year forward. Do you guys have any other questions? Otherwise, I'd like to talk about going back in the past.
I don't have any.
What's our, Marla, what's our internal controls on ADP utilization calculations? What are we doing right now?
well, John's actually the internal controls officer, so you might want to direct that toward him. We have our internal controls in the office, which applied when Bev was the payroll manager. Then she would do all the reports, then we would reconcile those and had a second, a payroll backup and a second approver. Then once those are calculated, then those would go through the claims process to carry and ultimately on to you guys. But that's sort of our internal process, which I have written out further. But it's been brought to my attention that John is the internal controls officer, not me. Even though I have internal controls in my office, which is a very important piece of the puzzle.
Patrick, what is your specific question when it to ADP?
We requested a meeting with ADP today, and what was the reason for it?
I wanted to talk to them about the 401A contributions to try and get those paid and let them know that we needed a specific report. I had initially asked that it just be my meeting with an understanding that administration and or Baker Tilly wanted a meeting, so it was almost a meeting to prepare for a meeting, but I had questions of my own.
Okay.
And Kelly ended up joining me on that 1 o'clock meeting, by the way.
Any other questions, Patrick?
No.
Before you go on, I did wanna touch on the INPERS item. So I emailed them on Friday, with our logs of the quarterly payments that we had made in '09. And just wanted to see if that had advanced anywhere from Friday morning to this afternoon. So I spoke with a representative there named Donna. Donna said that they actually would have to go back and pull their old paperwork, which is in a separate storage facility, and what she called the old IBM, like green bar paper. So when they were checking against Justin's finding, they were simply looking in the ERM system, which didn't exist in '09. So now they have to check their paperwork against our paperwork. And that, she said, can take 2 to 3 weeks, but she put a rush on it. And so we'll see, but once that's done, the money that I sent would likely land back at fire, and we'd need to do an adjustment, like a charge back from my department to adjust it with fire, but that's 2 to 3 weeks out.
So that's kind of the second part of the discussion, is going back in time to 2008, 2009, or wherever that time is. A couple of questions I got, and Caitlin, you may not be able to answer the first one, but is there a statute of limitations on how far we have to go back and make individuals whole in regards to payroll? Like, for example, billings typically only go back so many, like 10 years or something like that.
I'm sure there is, I don't know it off the top of my head, but I can look into it.
That's something the council would be interested in knowing and understanding. I assume we would have the rights to, go further back if we wanted to. I just wanna understand where that statute of limitations is, if there
Yeah,
is
for sure.
one that exists. Second question would be, when you go back and you look at that accounting portion, Kelly, of what errors might have been done or improperly or not, money transferred to certain people's either perf account or to their 401 or 457 accounts, and their payroll said maybe this amount, but less or nothing was put in. I guess in that forensic investigation, where did that money go? I'm curious. Did it go into somebody else's account that is now reaping the rewards? Or did it go, where did it go?
Okay.
So I think, actually, in my opinion, a full audit of the last clerk treasurers, deposits in any account should be looked at.
Okay.
I think that's important.
And I wanna make one clarification, it won't be a forensic audit.
Okay.
Forensic audit means something totally different, it will
Okay.
just be a payroll audit to begin with, unless they see,
Yes.
Yeah.
It could
Yeah.
change, it could change direction to a forensic audit. That's a very specific type of audit. It's looking for fraud. And right now, what we're trying to do is just do an audit to make sure that everyone that the retirement contributions were made, calculated correctly, and if they were made timely in accordance with the plan document, that we were meeting all of our fiduciary responsibilities. And, you know, to your point, if we did have some missing contributions, where did those go? Yes,
My contributions could have went in John's account with John's money.
right,
Or
exactly,
were they improperly coded and
Right.
went in the wrong account?
right.
So
Somebody just say, hey, here's leftover money, put it in this account, which benefited somebody.
the other piece, particularly like in regard to NPERS, is when you had asked about, you know, well, what about the interest this person would have owned? That part of the process is totally voluntary, and it's my understanding that we would need to establish sooner than later whatever policies we want to follow, if we should find more. Like, you know, is every instance we're gonna find, we have to go back and do it on paper, we find those, they find those, we wanna make the employees whole. Are we making them all whole on both sides? Can we show that they've made their payments also? So, I think there has to be some thoughtful consideration, before jumping in.
Switching gears a little bit.
Marla, what's your internal controls on the MPERS issue?
Well, NPER is now using their EMR system, ERMS system is what they call it. We get a report, we create a report and we send it to them, basically telling them how much we're going to pay. Then they either affirm or deny what our payment is. And then once it's affirmed, again, we write a claim, we process that and send it through to them.
When you were notified by the employee, what have you, on this MPERS issue, you immediately cut a check. We'll talk about the validity of you doing that right away later, but did you go through any internal controls or verify that? I mean, you were quick to cut one. So what's your process there? I mean, that tells me now that we have no internal control.
So the process was, and again, I think you had conversations that I clearly didn't have with someone else about Justin reaching out to NPERS, because that's part of the thing I didn't know. My first point of contact was with NPERS. So I contacted NPERS via telephone, and I went back to the wage and contribution report available on which is the reporting site, and with the representative could see visually that those quarterly payments did not exist. And then if you might recall, there was a bevy of emails that day saying, how can this happen? What's your statutory authority to pay it? It's a state agency. So my interpretation is that as the clerk treasurer and the fiscal officer, when a state agency requests a payment for what they can show was a missed payment, I paid it. And as I told you, because I didn't want to hurt fire, I paid it out of one of my lines. However, then within days, and maybe had the emails not been flying back and forth with accusations of something improper, I could have had some time, but again, have felt very stressed by all the accusations of, there's no wrongdoing or lack of internal controls as far as I'm aware, which all of our audits, I think, show that our internal controls are pretty good. We'll see what the new audit has to say. But that's how it got.
Well, you immediately cut a check. You didn't even bother to go check your own records. Now you do. How do you handle individual confidential information that identifies people, like social security numbers, addresses, date of birth, and so forth? Do you have an office policy on that?
We do.
What is it?
We don't show it to others. We've been very concerned about how that's going to be sent.
Is it written out?
It is written out.
How do you handle contractors?
Can you be specific about what you're asking?
How do you handle consultants? You have a pretty significant consultant budget. How do you handle consultants and their access to that type of information?
I don't understand your question. Their access to their contracts,
How do you handle outside people that are not your direct employees access to identifiable information?
they would need to make a FOIA request? Is that what you're asking? They can
Not
make a
exactly.
request via online.
You have a consistent ability to not understand basics. How do you handle personal identifying information with outside consultants? Do you have a policy?
Personally identify. Patrick, I don't know what you mean. We don't make the contracts public.
Social security numbers, date of birth, everything that's in a payroll piece. How do you handle that?
Unless there's someone that we are contracted with it's all in office. We're not sending it out and sending it around to anybody.
So is it just individuals that work for your current office that has access to that information?
If I have a consultant in the office, they had access to that information. There was no information that left my office.
Do you have individuals that don't work for you that have access to that information?
That would have access to the information? No, not unless it's requested via a FOIA request.
Has there been people consistently in your office in the last 2 to 3 weeks that are not employed by you in any way, shape, or form?
I don't think consistently, no.
Okay, let's define consistently.
Patrick, let's cut to the chase here. I feel like this is an inquisition here. Do you have information on something that's taken place with Marla's office that you're having these questions? If so, let's not hide this and let's be clear, because I don't understand what you're asking either.
Marla, do you have the former clerk treasurer and a public citizen in your office consistently?
No.
Oh, Marla, that's not what people believe.
Well, I don't know who the people are.
Yes, you do. The lack of internal controls here, Marla, you do not have internal controls. You immediately cut a check. I don't know based on how. And then frankly, then you actually come back with other data. Why didn't you go to that first?
Because you specifically emailed me that day. It was like the Spanish
Marla,
Inquisition.
I did not. I asked you a question of how are we here?
You
We
asked
can
me
revisit the email.
You asked me a series of
I asked for
questions.
documentation from IMPERS based on what the hell is going on.
Okay, Patrick, when we first began our offices, as you'll recall, you specifically told me that you were gonna take me off the agenda because I couldn't give you any zingers. You wanted to know everything I was gonna say in advance.
Marla, that is a flat out lie, and I'm really tired of it.
No, John was there.
Consistently do this.
John was there. He heard it. So my frustration is that you bring me into a meeting where you want to give me zingers, all questions that could be easily answered in an email, but you're having these other meetings in a silo. Cindy occasionally comes into the office to pick up her granddaughter, but she is not actively working in my office. There was one time that I contracted with her to have her come back to show me something. And we made that payment last year. That's been it. She's not working for me. I had O.W. Crone, my contracted municipal advisor, come in to help me. They were physically in the office. That's it. So I don't know who you think is working for me, all these extra people. It's simply not happening.
Any other items, Patrick?
I've got, thank you. So my question is around Baker Tilly. So they've been contracted with us for for however long. What is the expectation, or have there been any discussions about how long Baker Tilly will continue to support the clerk treasurer's office, or I guess what's the next step? Are they gonna be working on something else, or are they gonna, what is it indefinite as far as how long they're gonna be contracted with the city?
So from my understanding, and I don't wanna put words in Orla's mouth, cause this is under her purview, but you know, we're gonna keep them until we get everything cleaned up and rectified. And till Marla has the reports that she needs and she feels comfortable with. Right now, we're working on the 401A calculations for match so that everyone, each pay period, everyone is getting their 401A match and it's calculated correctly. And we can actually generate reports and tie back to it. Obviously, the next step is going to be a payroll audit, so we may still need their help in pulling out the proper reports out of ADP. It's sometimes not as clear and straightforward, just because a lot of the processes we had before were pretty manual. So I can't necessarily directly answer that, John, because we still have a lot of cleanup work.
Okay.
We've made a lot of strides, and I feel, you know, I'm sitting here at the finance committee and not asking to cancel it because I'm spending all day reviewing the payroll preview reports. When we have payroll, it's gonna be issued tomorrow. So I mean, the last payroll and this payroll, we've made huge strides. And Jason and Melissa have been on top of it. But going forward, you know, obviously Marla's office needs to hire a new payroll manager. And until we either hire someone or we determine to use Baker Tilly or another outside firm to process payroll for us going forward, I mean, we have to have someone. Marla, they're now obviously down a person. Their office, we've got to have someone that processes payroll and is the point person for it.
What's the status of that payroll manager?
So we had, we only had it up for a week because I thought I had found the right person there. There was some basically political pressure, I'll just say, to maybe continue looking. So there was another candidate identified in that group. I reached out to her and I'm looking forward to hopefully doing a phone interview. I don't know that she has background in government, but she does have background with very large corporations, so I'm kind of hopeful there. I'm gonna ask Brady or Sarah to just relist on NeoGov, hoping to get a larger pool of candidates, but you know, there are a couple that we can hope that they work out. And hopefully we'll get more.
Would this be an employee of your office or the city, or could it be a combination of the two that reports to both? Or, I don't know.
They should still be an employee of my office, but I'm also looking for someone who would be very open to sharing responsibilities with HR and administration too, because that's the way I see things moving forward when I'm done here, so.
Yeah, so somebody reports to you, but ultimately would make that transition to the city in 2 or 3 years, right? When-
Right,
Right.
When
Right.
would come.
I mean, provided the person's
Yeah.
you know, well-liked, I guess, and doing a good job.
I think the payroll person also needs to have ADP experience.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, I don't disagree, ADP experience would be great. It's, right now, I did reach out to Sarah Juarez, who's our local, she's really a salesperson, but to see if there's someone who could fit the bill. Then again, just putting it out on NeoGov. Again, there was somebody that I thought would be really great, but there's just some political pressure there that I can't really pursue that person at the moment, I don't feel like, but we'll keep looking. I'm confident we can find someone.
And I don't know if it's worthwhile, if it's gonna take someone to find someone that has the expertise that we need. If it's worthwhile, you know, like I said, I'm not trying to push Baker Tilly, but you know, there are some companies, it's not necessarily economical to hire like a full-time payroll manager, so they outsource that piece. I mean, I know ADP's processing it, but it's obvious we need someone outside of ADP to be our point person for all the changes, you know, the open enrollment, all that piece. If it would be worthwhile looking for like Baker Tilly to send us a proposal, like here's how much we would charge once everything's cleaned up, you know, to kind of be your payroll person, and we just outsource it. So it's an option if we can't find someone to fit our needs at this point in time. It's just, I'd like to throw that out for consideration.
ADP's always indicated that they do have like contractors that they can send to work in the office. So
Okay.
that avenue, it needs to be pursued also.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that topic? Otherwise, we'll move to the third topic in the agenda, the City of Westfield Transparency Portal update. You wanna talk about I guess during this payroll stuff that was going on, there was some emails that went out regarding the City of Westfield Transparency Portal. So you wanna talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, my impression is that beyond the reports and the reports being on
Is it online already?
the city website, can you link the report?
For the transparency portal?
Oh, no, no, no,
Oh,
no,
okay.
no, 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 this is something totally different.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, misunderstanding. So right now, Kim has been working to upload everything that was lost from the transition on the city website. And she's been trying to go back historically so you guys can get you know, minutes, agendas, all the 3 monthly reports from finance, as well as all the ordinances and resolutions. So it's been an extraordinary job because that information unfortunately just didn't come over correctly. So I reached out to our partners at Finley and Cook to really ask them, I had an awareness that Syllogist has something called Syllogist Gov. And Syllogist is really the provider of software that echoes Mission ERP, which is what we're using, that we commonly refer to as NAV or Business Central. So that was the initial email. However, after speaking with them, really what they feel like is that, one, we absolutely need to get our system in the cloud, which will give you guys the access that you want when you're not on the premises. So I've had 2 meetings with them. This first one, which was sort of a discovery of information meeting, and then secondly, a meeting with Chris to discuss that with them. I'll let Chris explain if he wants to, the GCC security on the city website, but at any rate, I felt like that meeting went really well and we made some headway. Kevin's inquiry back, Kevin is from Finley and Cook. He needed information about how many licenses we currently have, how many we might need in the very near future, and who is doing what job is, and again, this kind of goes to the internal controls, but you can't have, you know, the same person taking payments who can write invoices. So those had to be divided out, and I did supply Kevin with all that information last Friday. So so that's one piece, and if Chris wants to add to that, I'll let him do that after I'm done. The other piece is I asked them to consider, from a budgeting implementation timeline perspective, you know, let's figure out what needs cleaned up, because we have a lot of old appropriation lines that we don't use, that we could use them, but they can also, some of them we would never use again. There are also like a lot of dimension codes, which gets down into how we divide things out among different departments and invoices and projects. And we'd like to have that cleaned up, because that would really go a long way to helping with capital assets that we need to keep track of. Including there's a layer in NAV that does capital assets, so we wouldn't have to hire an outside contractor. which I know Kelly was nice enough to say, hey, I've done that before, would you like some help, which I absolutely would, so I think that's gonna be a great piece. But that's sort of where we are. Do you have anything to add from our meeting that I forgot?
No, unless you guys want me to explain why we can't just move it to the cloud.
Yes, that'd be great.
So, Microsoft has two clouds. They have the corporate cloud that like Fortune 500 companies are in, and then they have the government cloud that has higher security standards for it. Sylogist, which is an add-on within Business Central, is not in the government cloud. They do not meet whatever requirements that takes. So, in order to
This is an organization.
our version of Business Central is the Sylogist version.
No, our version is not Sylogist. Our version is Mission ERP, not Sylogist.
That's not what they said on the call,
Okay,
from my understanding.
I think-
Regardless, they just don't meet the federal requirements or the requirements
Right.
regarding the safety protocols and
Yep.
and everything.
So we have a GCC tenant with Microsoft. We're in the government cloud. We would have to get a corporate tenant to spin up it in the cloud, and my team has just been discussing the security that goes along with that. I mean, it's still Microsoft, it's still highly secure, it's still many other companies are in it that rely on it. It just doesn't have that extra level that we have relied on and have been very comfortable with for the past years.
We can't be the first government entity that's wanting to do this.
Correct, we are not.
So what do others use?
So with talking with Finley and Cook, about, cause that's their product, that's what they know. They have several other people that have done the same model. And there are other entities, even in Hamilton County, that own a corporate side tenant because they wanna spin up software that's not in the government cloud. So now it's not their financial software, it's a little bit different, but a lot of the things in this financial software are obviously the most public of public information. It doesn't have employee records in it, it doesn't, there's no social security numbers or anything like that, so. That information getting taken isn't really a concern or so much, so. So it's about making that decision and then us taking the steps as a company of spinning up a second tenant and making sure it's tied to our current one, so.
So that would be staying with Finley and Cook or going with another vendor?
That would be
or
staying with
provider?
Finley and Cook, for their thing, 'cause so I don't know what it would look like, to look at a completely different processing, thing, 'cause Nav Business Central exists in the GCC, in the government side, but it doesn't have, and it may not look or function like ours is set up, which is designed for our fund-based accounting, processing, cash basis, and things like that.
Patrick, do you have a question? Okay, I thought I heard something, okay. So, we're kinda stuck right now until,
I mean, it's about our comfort level, and my team, we've had one discussion about it after the meeting. Plan on having another one. I have promised Marla that we'd make a decision by the end of this week if we were comfortable moving forward with that, so.
and if they're not, I mean, we have other options, but I also feel like we're in a very transitional time. Does it make sense for me to choose another financial software now? Particularly, and quite frankly, my choice would be no, let's just leave it in this holding pattern, only because of the number of audits we've had. And we switched 10 years ago from Keystone to Nav. People either use Keystone or BSNA. I don't think we wanna switch back. But if Kelly wants to switch back in 3 years, that'd be fine. I don't want to go through that. It's a pretty big process. The last time we went through it, we had to run it concurrently for 2 years in order to make that transition so that we could also, and we still have to access Keystone from time to time.
that's
Very
kinda,
rare.
that's kinda what I was gonna say, even if you started now, you're not
Yeah.
gonna be filing fully transition for at least another year or 2 years, cause you're gonna have to run concurrently for a while, just to make sure everything's ticks and ties. We gotta start now. I mean, we're gonna be at the city transition next level here soon. We need to start now working on that to move forward so that you two working together in cooperation to develop what the city's
It would
vision is in the future moving forward with
It would be
business software.
a lot easier to, and I understand the security protocols, but it'd be a lot easier to just stay on-prem and drop it and not do anything different for now. Because again, I don't think that my office has any interest in transitioning to a completely different product. The one that I might consider potentially might be BSNA. Now they just merged with Voice.
The other thing is she stays on what she does, we get one for the city and the city starts working on the transition and basically you're running concurrent numbers and comparing them. And that you're doing, moving to a new system, you guys are the one running the new system, she's running the old system, running concurrently side by side and seeing if they're matching.
Well, the clerk treasurer is by statute usually the person who picks the accounting system.
I agree, and you can use your own, but they would use one as well as we transition moving forward.
Not sure how we could do that. It's not like we only take care of the finances of our office.
It's whatever numbers you're getting, they're digesting the same numbers. The same information.
I appreciate what you're talking about. We'll have to definitely have a conversation about that.
Yeah, if you two continue with Chris in that conversation, if you want one of us in that as well, we'll join in that. Okay.
Yeah, cause I mean, going forward, you know, Business Central maybe with the updated version, maybe the wave of the future, or you know, there may be other softwares, cause you know, with us going towards doing gap reporting, you know, Munis is a software system. I know I've mentioned it to several of you guys, that actually has an ACFR module, BNS, or what is it, BNSA?
BSNA.
Yes, I know one city uses it, and they actually are partnering with another company to actually build out their ACFR. It's called Gravity. So if going back to, or using BSNA is an option, I know there's an ACFR module that can work with, they've been working out the bugs, so I know that's an option. But my point to all this is there's different avenues that we can look at. And with as quickly as the city is growing and the reporting requirements that we need to keep up with, and honestly, what the finance committee, the city council would, with what you guys would like to see and would be helpful, and even the directors. I mean, I'd love to work with you, Marla, on kind of figuring out what the accounting software is of the future and what the best way to approach that is. You know, because if we could get, you know, the capital asset module up and running, a debt management module, grant management, there's so many different pieces that we're doing kind of outside the system, that if it's all housed within the system, it would make all of our lives much more streamlined. It would enhance internal controls, and everyone would have the reporting that they need. So I know there's options out there. I'm not familiar enough with Business Central Nav to know if the upgraded version has what we really need. And if they have like the modules, like an ACFR module for us to utilize.
I do not know either.
Because I know there's other governmental softwares that do.
Well,
So-
this big merger between BSNA and Voice is just occurring right now, so
Okay,
I'll reach out to them.
because you
perhaps,
probably know,
so that
you
they
know one person that they have it.
I know lots of people who
Yes,
have it.
yep,
Lots
yep.
of people who are going that
Yeah.
route, so, yeah.
And there's one in particular that they're the ones using Gravity for the ACFR that I know you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Any other questions regarding that topic? If not, we'll move on to, which you kind of led into, was the 2023-2024 ACFR status. What's the status of the 2023 ACFR?
I think Caitlin was working on, SBOA has requested like a formal letter.
Yes.
Okay.
So she's working on that.
letter.
Yes.
Great.
It's a very high threshold, so we will not have anything to report. It's like $10 million or
Right.
something in lawsuits.
They want that received what, in 2 days?
Yes, yep.
And then I think they'll get things together and notify us and send perhaps you know, whatever their findings are, I don't know. Just to make you all aware, I am going on vacation on Friday. I will be taking my computer. I don't know if they would allow me to do an exit conference virtually. I doubt it. So I will be back on the Tuesday, the 8th, I believe. So at any rate, then we will schedule, like, after I review it, if I have to make any responses to it, we'll do that. And then at the exit conference, the entire council is allowed to come to that. No one else, but the council, it's a meeting because they have essentially called it, that we can have certain people there. And so there's no nervousness about a quorum. And that leads into 2024.
I guess,
Does she
yeah,
have questions about
I mean,
2023?
project when you see this all being wrapped up, May,
Oh,
May, mid-April?
I would think before May.
The 23 audit wrapped
Yeah.
up. I mean, I'm hoping within
Yeah.
the first week of April,
Because we need that to be completed to start
that would be
2024.
correct.
Right.
Yes.
So that would be the
So,
next question, is when the
Probably the
2024
second
act was
week
gonna
of
be in
April then,
place.
since I'm gone.
Yeah, the second
Yeah.
week of April. Yeah. No, that's a good, yeah. Once they have the exit conference, then the final report can be issued.
Any questions on the 23 act for, or the 24? Okay. On the 2024 act for, when you guys have when's it get a kickoff meeting with Forbes? I'd also like to see kind of a schedule from them on how they're gonna go about approaching this and getting it completed within the timely manner by a deadline that we want.
Well, so Forvis is the auditor.
Yeah.
And, right, Baker Tilly's the
Yes.
compiler. So when you say you want a schedule, you need a schedule from the people who are gonna complete it first, right?
Correct.
Which usually the goal is June, but since it's now a later start, we would have to begin applying for GFOA certificates in June, just like we did last time. And you can only get 6 of those, but that would run us through the end of the year, which I don't see that happening. But the kickoff with Baker Tilly is scheduled for April 10th. And then, I guess as fast as they can complete it is when Forbes can get started.
Yeah, so they're saying it's gonna take them somewhere between 90 and 120 days to get it done. Typically, it's a 3-month turnaround time, but because we're gonna be a new client for Baker Tilly, you know, there's startup time, building our financial statements in their system, doing all the proper mapping. So it's just a little bit of there's more of a lift on the front end initially. And then obviously they got to, get to know our counting systems and just how our records are gonna work. So when we kind of pinpointed with Dan, knowing that we were probably shooting for an April start with the 2024 ACFR, they really think between when they can get it done and, obviously we've got to firm this up with Forbes, but hoping everything, the ACFR is completed and audit's done by 9:30. Obviously, we're not gonna hit the 6:30 GFOA deadline, as Marla said. We can go ahead and ask for extensions like we did last year. We can ask them up through December. Now, whether they grant them or not, because we asked for extensions last year, I don't know. It's gonna be what the GFOA decides. But the goal is to get us then back on track for the 2025 ACFR. So we obviously are not gonna meet the 6:30 GFOA deadline this time, but the goal is to hit it next year. And I know Baker Tilly is committed to, obviously do it accurately, but as quickly as they can. And then Forbes they'll work with Forbes, you know, because Forbes may be able to start doing an audit before everything is final. They're good about working with their clients on kind of taking different areas, like if we were done with capital assets, they could go ahead and start auditing capital assets. So Forbes is really great to work with from that standpoint, so they're not just waiting until a final report is done.
Has the contract been signed and sent back to Forbes?
Yeah.
Yes, with Forbes it has been.
Actually, just this last Thursday, SBOA sent an email, and then I received the official notice in the mail today that everything's go forward for Forbes to audit.
There was a process that had to go through that even though we selected Forbes, Marla got the contract signed, there was still a lot of paperwork that Marla had to supply to the State Board of Accounts for them to grant the opt-out.
And just keeping them abreast of what's going on and keeping them.
That's correct,
Okay.
yes.
I guess that pretty well covers the Forbes question, unless there's any other questions on that. Patrick? Good?
Good.
Okay.
That's-
Reports,
Yeah,
let's go
that's what she
to
said.
review of the appropriations and fund and revenue report. Do those, Marla?
If we could start, I guess, with the fund report. General fund started out with 10.41 million in cash and collected 6.04 million in revenues. Of the 14 million dispersed, 10 million went to Goldman Sachs Investment Fund, which left a balance in the general fund of 2.34 million. But we're still getting 4.25 in Goldman Sachs, so interest still looks good there. The major revenue generating funds were road and streets, fire operating, and treasuries are showing a healthy revenue inflow. That was 292,896. So that kind of reinforces our financial stability. But I think our bigger problem is our disbursements are exceeding our revenue. Certainly for February. I don't know, do you have any questions generally about the general fund or the fund report or anything?
I don't have it this time. Do you have any?
No.
This time? Patrick, any questions on your end for the fund report?
Can you send us January's fund report?
I'm fine.
I don't
Thank you.
think it's online or.
I don't think Kim's done it. The appropriation report, really this I thought was good news. It shows moderate spending relative to the total budget, you know, through all departments. Departments with higher than average expenditures are the usual suspects. Administration, police, fire, and public works, as they should be. The administration transfer line, we spent in February 4.79 million out of, which was primarily for fund allocations. But then we've also since then have expended more dollars out of that. So cash flow is kind of a problem with that transfer line right now. Having spoken with Ben, he indicated we really wouldn't need that money until the summer, which I'll get back to that in just a minute. But one notably higher than normal appropriation line was just administrative consulting services, because they've spent 38% of their budget so far. But everybody else was kind of in that 10 to 20% budget threshold, so it looks like controlled spending is where it's at for the beginning of the year, as it should be. And we just need to, you know, carefully monitor that transfer line to make sure that we have the money when we need the money for the projects that we've got upcoming. And I would say that like is sort of a good lead off into investments, is where I kind of wanted to go to get you all's feedback on that. There was nothing particularly noteworthy about revenues other than we do have great revenues coming into the city. But just that basically the expenditures outpace that right now.
Do the MVH and LRS that remind me, do those come in monthly, right?
I can't remember off the top of my head right now, Kurt, I'll have to get back with you on it, but we do have, regular MVH and then MVH restricted, and those are split, so.
I don't have any further questions, Patrick or John, any further questions on the appropriations fund or revenue?
No.
Okay, you wanna talk about the 2024 year-end closing report status?
Oh,
And spend comparison to reserve and carry over into 2025 general
yeah,
fund?
I can do that. So, at my conference, one of, the great classes was on AI. And of course, training your artificial intelligence to get it to do what you want it to do. And I think it would have difficulty, it does have difficulty sometimes learning to understand the flow of one fund to another. But overall, when you're comparing documents, it was very useful. So I actually ran the 2023 FR and the 2024 AFR through it. And the AFR is, the annual financial report that we have to do before February 28th every year. And OW Crone helps me with that, as that's a pretty big task, getting everything from our appropriation lines into the right buckets that they need to go in for that report. I guess, let's see, if I was going with, would you like a comparison of one year over the other, or just the summary of 24? I did both, not knowing what you would want.
Comparison.
Okay, so with the comparison, it said revenues increased in 2024 by $42 million, primarily from taxes, investment income, and service charges. Expenditures surged, the way it said it, by 70.76 million, leading to a net decrease in available funds of 11.86 million. But as you all know, we had significant monies in reserves. Investment income grew dramatically, sorry. Bond proceeds increased by 3.66 million. Some of the key trends were personnel costs increased, infrastructure and capital investments jumped a lot. Operating expenses went up quite a bit.
What was attributed to the operating expenses?
Driven by higher maintenance, consulting, and services costs is what it said. It said that there was a lot of spending, which I think we know, on infrastructure, showing a focus on long-term investments. It again remarked about spending outpacing revenue growth. Investment revenue increased by 3.72 million from the year prior. So that gave us some financial cushion. And its recommendations really were control operating cost growth, monitor infrastructure project timelines, strategically manage interfund transfers, and continue maximizing investment returns. So I thought that was a pretty cool way of doing it. I mean, it's not my job. I'm not the financial strategist. I know that. I'm not a municipal advisor, but when you guys wanna report, that's how I got it.
Any comments?
Nope, not for me.
Patrick?
Nope.
Okay, we'll go move to the last item, CT investment treasurer's letter.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to pass this out. If I need more, I'll just let you pass them around. I'm happy to do that. They're probably more for internal use than public, I'm gonna say. Should be okay for public. There's nothing on there that would.
It's on the website.
Oh, I didn't know if Kim had posted it or not. Okay. Oh, and I didn't save myself one, but I can see it. Thank you. I'll pass it back down. So just if you're looking at that very top line, oh, well, it didn't print the way I wanted it to there, thank you. There's a trade date under Invesco Short-Term Government Agency Reserve. And that's basically when we have a treasury that matures, it's a short-term savings account that we accrue interest on until I decide what I want to do with it. And because we're at this place where there's gonna be a lot of money needed, I'm basically asking you guys as the fiscal body, do you want me reinvesting in treasuries, or do you want me starting to liquidate some of them in order to make that cash available? Do you want time to talk about it?
Yeah, we're gonna need time to talk about that. I don't think we have enough
Okay.
information just to make that
Sure. So-
decision.
That 328, I'm already moving back, just because, you know, it's not a significant amount. But the 2.5 million, is general fund dollars. And then the, 500,000 that's coming up in April, that was actually, I know there was a question last month about what I call the general fund interest account. It's really, that account is like a sweep account where I put interest, but then I reinvested it. So I got, at the time, a treasury bill at almost 5%, which was pretty awesome. Can't do that now, so, it can either just go back there or can be just put back into corporate and, the general fund altogether, but, yeah, I need to know what you guys want me to do, cause like I said, yields on the money market are about 4.25. Treasuries are at 4 or a little less. So it's really up to you. Also, we've got you'll see the rainy day account is down there at the bottom. I've got 1.7, it was an original investment of 1.7 million, so I could sweep off the money and just put it into the Goldman Sachs account under rainy day. I could take it all and put it back into a treasury, but I think you guys really have to make that decision and tell me what you want. Rainy day is obviously very different from general fund investments, but I'm willing to heed your advice, just need it.
I think, my question would be, what's coming up that where we need the dollars
Well-
versus reinvesting?
So when you approved the budget, it was for 22.25 million in that transfer line, if you remember that. So Ben has indicated in a previous email that he knows he's gonna have to ask for an additional appropriation of 2.5 million. But again, he said we won't need funds until the summer, so I don't know what that particular 2.5 million is dog-eared for. But he had set out only 3 appropriation lines, and Danielle had no way of knowing this, but the same day I talked to him, when he said I won't need it till the summer, she sent an email that night saying, hey, I need money on Monday for land purchase, which went through Board of Public Works for the police station land. So then basically we had to reallocate $4 million from that because that went through 266 and Ben had not indicated anywhere that that's where it was coming from. So the three lines, like one line was 2 million, one was 3, and then one was 18 million that was basically kind of earmarked for economic development. So, and 4 million of that 18 million funded the RDC's Fund 244. So what was 18 is now about 10, but again, I don't have the cash really to fund it unless I took everything out of Goldman Sachs. I'm not comfortable doing that. So as projects arise, I need to know what your timeline is, what the schedule is, so that I can make those funds available to you, unless you really want me to divest and start.
So what I'm hearing, you're gonna need some type of decision by mid-May.
Well, as long as nobody comes back at me with another large project, 6 million of all these funds was coming from food and beverage, so that's actually what we moved to fund the police and fire. As long as it all winds up back at 22.5 million and then whatever else needs added, we're okay, but yeah, I don't want cash flow to be a problem. That's not something that I do. That's again meant for municipal advisors, but it is a cash flow problem today.
We'll take that under advisement. Maybe we'll get together next week or so and discuss it further. Okay, any city administration comments? Danielle?
Nope.
Good. Clerk treasurer?
I think I'm good right now.
Council members, any other, or finance committee members, any additional comments?
Patrick, anything?
Nope.
Okay, good here. Hearing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We're good.
On to the next.
How you doing, sir? Doing all right?
This is all I could find on this
You
report.